Well, you sure see what a criminal gang of racists and Christian fascists, and paid for by corporations busy poisoning and polluting all of you. That's the Republican Party. And so, of course, right now, they've got the perfect figurehead for that, this vast criminal of Trump. And his vice president, Christian wacko extremist nut, Pence. And here, just after the 2020 election, just like people said, Trump is going to lose. He lost. And he's going to try and deny and hold off getting kicked out of office in some way. Because all those lawsuits and civil actions and criminal investigations of Trump and Trump Enterprises and his family are waiting for him, and he gets out of the door. And that's for sure. And the whole Republican Party is so desperate at this point. They've invested so heavily in racism, in Christian fascism, and in poisoning and polluting you. Because that's really what the backbone of the money, are the corporations who want to deny climate change. Therefore, who's denying climate change? Republicans. Who denies the science? Republicans. In the same way, the Christian nuts, they want to deny science too. Because science points out all their kind of bursts their bubbles of all their myth. Because they're relying on all these myths from their books of, 2,000-year-old, that how long ago? Ignorant people who didn't know anything, where religion was just social control and made up to cover their ignorance. Well, that's the Republican Party. And then you throw in there the overt racists like the KKK and the Nazis, folks, in the U.S. After your parents and grandparents put their lives on the line to kill off Nazi, here they are in the U.S. And they're in the Republican Party. That's all who the Republican Party is. You're seeing it very clearly. And the lines are very clearly separated still. Just because the election happened, didn't solve anything. It's a struggle now for years to determine where this America is going to go. What is it? And how is it going to undo and disable and wipe out, folks, wipe out the legacy of racism and disable and throw out the lunacy and extremism of repression that is Christian fascism, and that is going to disable and you're going to have to take them. It will be court things going through the courts as well to challenge and disable corporations from continuing poisoning and polluting you and your kids. It's going to go on for years, the rest of your lifetime, at least as it is right now, because that's the resistance of the Republican Party. Who is the resistance to having clean air and clean water for you and your kids? Republican Party. Who's the resistance to wiping out racism and all its structural system in the U.S.? Republicans. Who's trying to keep gays and women from having equal rights throughout the society? Republicans. It's clearly drawn, clearly stated by how they vote, what they say, what their agenda is. And that toxic criminal enterprise is at the pinnacle right now of Trump-Pence Republican. And so there you are, desperate. They are, wanting to hold off, stop, deny the necessary change that's got to happen across the country and across the whole economic structure. If your country is going to stay in its Constitution, Bill of Rights, and Declaration of Independence that is based on equal rights. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. Equal rights. But Republicans aren't about equal rights. Republicans want to keep racism. Republicans want to keep repression of gays. Republicans want to keep repression of minorities with white supremacy. Just look how they vote. And by losing at this point with Trump, losing the election, which he did, there isn't any fraud and whatnot. Come on. You can't, why anybody believes Trump at all? He lied over 14,000 times in just the first 3 years. 14,000 times. He was lying so much, and still does, that it's just like a virus. The Trump virus. So, of course, before the election, he's saying, oh, it's rigged. It's rigged. It's a rigged election. So that he can just say it to the propaganda. And the Republicans have the outlet of the propaganda in Fox News, which is totally right-wing propaganda bullshit. And that's what it was made to be. So that he can say these lies and hysteria and these incredibly insane conspiracy theories of QAnon, And he can say them because Fox News will play them, as well as the idiots and criminals of Limbaugh and Alex Jones and Palin and all these other lunatics that support repression, racism, pollution, poison. That's the Republican agenda. You see it clearly. The line is very clearly set of what is Republican. That's who they are. Look at Trump-Pence. Look at Lindsey Graham, Phony Joni Ernst, Grassley, Orrin Hatch, Rand Paul. Go down the list. Jim Jordan. All of them right-wing lunatics. That's what the Republican Party is. And their agenda is a destruction of you and your kids, your rights, your freedoms. Don't think it's not, a big part of their agenda. You've heard it. You've seen it in action. It's going to take years. So here comes Joe Biden, Kamala Harris coming in. And right away you're already hearing from Moscow Mitch McConnell, another overt racist, communist supporting, Russian Putin supporting wacko, how his intent is to stop anything that Joe Biden tries to do to help you during a COVID epidemic. Because who is responsible for the COVID epidemic failure? Republicans. Who's responsible for the language and denial of medical research and that would have informed you for safety of how to live during this pandemic? Republicans. They're responsible. And they know it. They're desperate. The resistance to health, the resistance to change, the resistance to science, the resistance to intelligence, all of that is coming from Republicans.